Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Sam and Cole podcast. We are speaking on Wednesday. What is this, Cole? August what? 5th?
August. Yep.
August 5th, that's right, which happens to be the 5th day of Jaguars training camp. Our continued thanks to the guys at Champion Cycling in their three locations, Arlington, the Beach, and Mandarin. Stop by and see Phil or Jim in Arlington, or stop by and see Brian at the beach, and you know you'll have a good time for all your cycling and a lot of your fitness needs as well. Thanks to them for their continued support. So, Cole, we're in Jaguars training camp, and it feels like a typical training camp, except that at this point, having been out there a few times, the quality of the roster is better. The lower end of the roster is faster, and I actually asked that question to Gus Bradley a couple of times, once during his show. And I said, look, you are what you earn in the NFL. Is that fair? And he said, yeah. And I said, all right, well, you've earned 7 wins in the last 2 years. And probably, if everybody was honest, that's probably what the quality of the roster deserved. Now, is this roster better? And he said, look, this roster is competitive. He said, I really like this roster. This roster has a chance to compete, and it's a question of guys taking their talent and executing it. And you and I know you can't expect everybody to play at their highest level all at the same time. When that happens, they go to the Super Bowl and they stay healthy, but that rarely happens. But you know, if you get guys on this team to play at a level that is commensurate with what you think they're capable of, then yeah, I mean they should be competitive in most games.
You know, one of the things that I like to do when trying to figure out how good or bad a team is going to be is, in my mind, put them through a 16-game season against the most average, a team with that is the most average in the NFL, right? And
who's that? Who's that now? The Browns?
Well, no, I don't think the Browns are average. I'm talking about like literally take all the starting quarterbacks and take number 16 and put him behind center. Take,
okay.
In other words, take the 32nd and 33rd starting wide receivers and put them on the team. So whatever that looks like, without necessarily saying it's an all-star team, just in your mind say, all right, what does the average walking around kind of player look like? This team looks closer to that level than they have. I was out on Monday, and again, no pads at that point, but they look closer to that. I don't think they are an average NFL team at this point. We'll see if that something changes my mind when they start actually hitting somebody with different colors on and so forth. But I still think one of the things that we look for is fewer blowouts, right? And I think they'll have fewer. I don't think they're going to be on the losing end of as many blowouts this year. But what leads to blowouts a lot of times are turnovers in inopportune times. I still think that the biggest thing, I know this seems like I've been harping on it for a year and a half, but they've got to get left tackle taken care of, right? Jokel has got to take the next step. And it's as important as Bortles, because if your left tackle isn't up to par against something better than the average rusher, then your quarterback's going to get blown up, and that may lead to injury, or it may lead to turnovers, and that can really turn games in a hurry.
Did you see Jokel practice on Monday?
On Sunday.
On Sunday, yeah. Can't you, just from a layman's eye, you're certainly not just the average layman, but from somebody who hasn't seen him every day and working out.
Sam, I'm a tremendous slouch.
Did you think that he looked bigger or slower, or what did you think?
He looks a little less baby fattish, but he still does not have the lower body that you expect to see in a left tackle.
Okay, I'll agree with that he does not have that heavy load in his pants, so to speak. But I will say that's what Tom Coughlin taught. Tom Coughlin taught me that. But I will say that in watching him, he absolutely gets his feet under himself so much quicker and ready to block somebody. He absolutely has more upper body strength. He's got a better idea of the necessary technique. Now, executing it is a different idea.
And how he does that in the middle of the fourth quarter.
So, I mean, is he? He suffers from being compared to Tony Baselli, but at the same time, he has got to be at least an average left tackle in the NFL, which means that you're an elite player. If you're a left tackle and you're an elite player. I mean, there's a lot of guys who can go out there, not a lot of guys who can stay out there and play that position. And, if you anticipate him being Walter Jones or Jonathan Ogden or Anthony Munoz or whatever, I don't think he's going to be that. But I do think with his mentality, his willingness to work, and his development physically, as well as his maturization as a football player, I don't think Jokel's going to be a problem.
Again, I will see. I'm not saying he can't get there or it hasn't done enough to be there this year. He hasn't had the opportunity to show it yet. I still think I still think he needs to add some strength. And I don't think that he is. I don't think he's a finished product yet, and that's frustrating. That and you can say, well, nobody's ever a finished product. You continue improving, but he hasn't gotten there, and here he is starting his third year since he was drafted. And
yeah, but come on, that first year didn't even count. He played 4.5 games, 3 of them at right tackle, and then he got hurt.
Still, it's not just about games played. I mean, you can't say that a guy doesn't gain anything from living the NFL lifestyle, being around, understanding the playbook, and so forth.
I agree with that, but I mean, he spent the entire offseason after his first year rehabbing. Remember, they snapped his ankle in half.
It's still frustrating that you don't know who your left tackle is at 3 years after you drafted that position, right? That's I'm not fair or not, whether the time he's been able to play or anything else. But the Jaguars don't know that, and that's just a big thing. And if there are two positions that people in Jacksonville who have covered this team for a long time have been exposed to play at a high level, right? It's left tackle and wide receiver. We know what a great wide receiver looks like in practice. We know what a great left tackle looks like in practice. Running back, you can't tell as much. We've seen a couple of terrific running backs in Fred Taylor, Maurice Jones-Drew. That in practice and we can get into this conversation another time. Running back in practice, you don't really see it because it's about over time and over the carries. How do you handle it? You continue to do that. But wide receiver, you can tell something about a wide receiver in practice. You can tell something about a left tackle in practice. So far, I've seen that out of Allen Robinson. I actually saw it, some hints of it last year from him in training camp. I think Allen Robinson has a chance to be a very good starting, not a number one, but a very good starting wide receiver. I haven't seen enough out of Jokel. And then the guy who people a lot of people think will be better than Robinson, I don't share the sentiment, is Marquis Lee, and he gets hurt again. And
Marquis Lee, I happened to be watching him on the play that he stepped out of practice today. They were running, I was standing there with Mark Brunell, and they were running these deep crossing routes, and we were joking, really? They think they're going to have time to throw that? And, you rarely see that, just the quarterbacks and just one line of receivers. And they were doing it one at a time. And he went down, made 2 moves, and was cutting across the middle. And all of a sudden, the ball was thrown, and he just pulled up. And he didn't grab his hamstring. He didn't. It looked like I'll tell you what it looked like, Cole. What people look like when you step in a hole.
Mm-hmm.
But that obviously on that practice field. I mean, that practice field like one of the best greens you've ever played on. Right. So it wasn't that. Clearly, after practice, they said it was a hamstring. And some guys, and Mark Brunell and I had this conversation, some guys just can't stay out of the tub. Some guys just are that kind of player. And it's fascinating that he wasn't that until his senior year in college when he did get injured. And consequently, where he fell to, the Jaguars were able to take him simply because he was hurt his senior year in college. But when the guy's healthy, he has that flash, he has that burner speed, he has the hands, he has the willingness.
I'm not sure about the hands, Dan. I'm going to be honest with you. I am not sold on his hands.
You compare everybody to like Jerry Rice.
No, but again, going
I
back
think
to the
I think he's got decent receiver hands. Is he going to reach up and grab everything? No.
no, but
But
you know what a number one receiver looks like in this city, as I said before.
sure.
And if that's what he was drafted for, I haven't seen his. I don't. He doesn't.
No, he's not. He's not Jimmy Smith. He's not Jimmy Smith.
Right.
No. And Allen Robinson has a chance to be better than what Keenan brought to the table because he's bigger, he's size wise. But then again, Keenan went over the middle, no problem, caught balls, got annihilated, and just got up.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing. So a little bit of spoiled nature for people who have watched this team. Spot positions. We know what a very good team looks like. That 99 team was the best team in the NFL and got beat by a decent but certainly not better Tennessee team. That was the best team in the NFL. So we know what a number one left tackle looks like. We know what a number one right tackle looks like in Leon Searcy. We know what a star running back looks like, a very solid quarterback, an all-pro wide receiver, a guy who can catch 70 passes on the other side, a tight end, a Pro Bowl tight end like Kyle Brady who can do those kinds of things. We know, and you're exactly right, even though we haven't seen this all come together as one team except for once, when a guy runs coverage, we know what a good coverage corner looks like. And that's why Aaron Colvin catches your eye.
Although we haven't great one day in and day out in this. I'm talking,
No. Rasheen was very good and made the Pro Bowl, but not an all-pro kind of player. But we know what that looks like. You know what I'm saying? Aaron Colvin is the closest to that. We know what like Telvin Smith, he is the kind of player that people in Jacksonville like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he plays hard and he runs all over the place and he's enthusiastic. And by the way, he really is a pretty good guy when you spend time with him. Puzzlesny is about as the quintessential middle linebacker that you're looking for. We know that. But the holes are so glaring because we know what those positive things look like that certain things really have to coalesce for this team to be able to beat an average NFL team on a regular basis. Going back to the very first thing that you said, this team either wins or loses to that team that you put together as the 16th best team in the league every week by a touchdown. They either win or lose based on a bounce of the ball. So it's not like they go out and beat that team every week. Whereas last year, they go out and probably sneak a win or two with a couple of lucky breaks, but they don't go out and ever beat that team.
Right. Yep.
This team wins or loses against the average NFL team by a touchdown every week.
And by the way, I'm not quite sure they're quite there. I think they're closer than they were because if they're a coin flip against an 8-8 team, the 16th best team in the league, they should beat the 30th best team in the league and get beat by the second best team in the league, right? I mean,
absolutely.
I'm not quite there on them yet, and I think this is sort of one of the sort of trends. I'm a little more bearish on this team than some. I need to see more, and I don't think they're a 3-win team. But people talking about 7, 8, 9 wins. I think I'm not seeing it yet.
This is right now, because of who they are, if you played the entire season as if every game was the first game of the year, okay? You know what I mean by that?
Everybody's healthy. Right? You get a full complement.
You don't have any memories of either good or bad. You don't get some momentum. If you ever play every game like it was the first game of the year, this team goes 6-10. So
that's about right. Yeah.
So the question is if they stay healthy and they build a little momentum, do they all of a sudden beat a couple people at home that they're not supposed to? Do they sneak a win on the road? That's the kind of thing.
Have the starting quarterback because he's suspended for.
Right. Yeah. So those are the things that all bear into it. Now, the New England Patriots, if they played every game like it was the first game of the year, they're 10-16. You know,
is that with or without? First game of the year, they're not going to have him.
Right. Well, at least we'll get to see if he doesn't play in that fourth game. We'll get to see the guy that the Jaguars were deciding whether or not it was him, Garoppolo, or Bortles, because they knew that they could get Garoppolo later, and they would have picked somebody else if everybody didn't pretty much agree that Bortles was the guy.
Yeah, that'll be intriguing.
Speaking of suspensions, you got something else you want to say?
Go ahead. That's
Dave Caldwell, I thought, gave excellent answers to Mike DiRocco regarding Justin Blackmon.
Yep.
And he didn't talk about his potential or potential lost or whatever. He said, and I thought the best quote was, look, if you haven't played football in 2.5 years, maybe it's not your top priority. And when you look at it that way, pretty simple. I mean, we all tend to look at it, geez, who was the guy forfeited $11 million and he had unbelievable talent. He doubled the Jaguars' offensive output when he was in the game. He really could have made a difference. But, that's kind of a selfish way of looking at it as a fan or an observer of the team. Caldwell was like, look, if you haven't played in 2.5 years, it's probably not your top priority. And I thought that was a very telling thing. I guess the question to me would have been, since he was picked by Gene Smith, who then brought in Mike Mularkey, is he the player that Dave Caldwell would have taken had he been the general manager that year?
Well, and I think at the time, I think it's a great question. I think at the time, it was also the player I think Shad Khan wanted, because the fans wanted, and I think he was going to be taken one way or another.
You mean with Smith and Mularkey? Well, Smith and then Mularkey, yeah.
Yeah, I think if it was Caldwell, if Caldwell and Bradley had those jobs at that point, you still have the same owner, and I think that would have. I think the pressure from the fan base and the need. It wasn't like they didn't have a need at wide receiver; they clearly did.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, that's a really good point, Cole, and I hadn't thought of that. That Shad Khan's first year, he wanted to make a splash. Certainly, an offensive guy with the kind of stats and reputation that Blackmon had as an explosive player. Certainly makes a splash for an NFL owner in his first year like Shad Khan. Maybe so. But remember, Gene Smith tried to protect the franchise after the drinking incident in Oklahoma State by moving some of his money around so that he had to literally earn it. It was all there. Basically, all he had to do was show up in order to get it, and he couldn't.
By the way, where on the Mount Rushmore of bad wide receivers who have played for the Jaguars, poorly used draft picks on wide receivers. The Jaguars have a pretty good look in Mount Rushmore there with R.J. Soward and Matt Jones, and Reggie Williams, and Justin Blackmon.
That's the 4 right there. 4 first-round picks.
Yeah.
I mean, R.J. Soward, Coughlin says, because R.J. Soward was a nut when he was in college. Tom, what makes you think that this guy is going to be different than the person he was in college? Coughlin, with a straight face, looked out and said, because the young man hasn't played for me.
Right. Arrogance of coaching.
I was like, geez, come on. Jack Del Rio says, I said to Jack, you were there in the press conference before the draft. Jack, without revealing any name, consequently, we know what we're working for. They picked Matt Jones. Jack stands up there and steals my line. He goes, we're so pleased to have Matt Jones because he wowed us at the combine. I was like, what a jerk. Reggie Williams, everybody had him second-round talent, maybe. That was I'm convinced that was Shaq's pick.
No doubt about it. Yeah,
that he told everybody he was going to take him.
So was Matt Jones. Remember, when after taking Byron Leftwich, the next 3 draft picks that Shaq made in the first round were pass catchers. Mercedes Lewis, Reggie Williams, Matt Jones, and that's it. He's trying to put weapons around Byron Leftwich, and it was absolutely his pick. So anyhow, bad receivers there for sure.
Man, that is I mean, that's almost as bad as what the Lions did there for a while.
Right, except for they did it all in a row.
Three consecutive years, exactly.
And then wound up with and then had the gall to pick another wide receiver like 2 years later.
Yeah, but he turned out to be pretty darn fabulous.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, what's going on with those Armada? They're struggling. They had a 3-1 lead, a 3-1 lead at home over Minnesota and couldn't hold it.
Yeah, they fluke goal and then a second yellow card and a sending off, and then conceded one with playing 10 men. The positive on it, though, is that they scored 3, and they're starting to get some of their guys back. Pascal Million's back from playing for Haiti in the Gold Cup. Akil Barrett, who scored his first pro goal, who was a former draft pick of Orlando City from last year, of this past draft, scored his first professional goal. He had been dealing with a hamstring. They might get Marcos Flores back this weekend. So they're starting to get some more bodies. But at some point, they're going to have all of their weapons out there. The last time they had all of their key players available in a match was back in April 25th, when they went to Tampa, got off 22 shots. That's a lot of shots in a match. And they haven't had them back all on the field and available at the same time since.
Well, it is they're a fun team to watch because of the style they play, but
time to get some results.
Did Gallardo just whiff on that one thing? What even happened there? And if you didn't see the game, the Armada are up 3-1. The ball's kind of bouncing around the box, and it heads toward the goal. And Gallardo looks like he's standing right there, and then puts his arms down or up, and the ball goes in the goal.
He just kind of, I think he was expecting it to be deflected, and he was trying to prepare for the deflection. There was a player who came right in front, and I think the guy maybe touched it and didn't deflect it. One of those, brush the hair kind of thing.
Okay, all right.
And I think that's what happened. It's interesting. You have that, which is just a whiff, and then on the other hand, he made in the same goal in the same half, he makes a save that becomes, the Sports Center #1 in play, and is nominated as the save of the year in soccer. So, it's you can see it both ways sometimes in the course of a match.
Absolutely, an athletic really looks the part too back there. I mean, he's the right size. He's got the right demeanor. He's got all that. The Armada, though, are not the worst club in town, because the Suns are clearly that. And I wonder if Miami knew this year, okay, the Bragans have sold the club, so we don't have to provide them with any kind of present going out. They've won 6 championships. They won a couple, or one with the Marlins. So, or maybe 2. I forget. Two with the Marlins. Yeah. So, and you wonder, Ken Babby's going to come in
now, right? What's
that?
Well, the prospects are in the big leagues now. I mean, the Marlins. You start looking at the Marlins roster; it looks like a Suns reunion.
Looks like it. Yeah. Look at the outfield there, with Yelich and Ozuna and Stanton, and you start looking all over their roster, like you said, and it's all the guys who played here. So, I just think that you wonder in Ken Babby's first year next year whether or not they'll try to go ahead and help stock the team. And because they can determine which one of their teams, A, AA, AAA, has the talent to compete for a title. They don't have to move guys up or down. Occasionally. Yeah,
usually with pitchers, you can decide. You can say, all right, well, what league makes the most sense for him based on the type of. For instance, if you have a pitcher who's a fly ball pitcher and you want to get him some confidence, you let him play in the baseball grounds. It's a big park. Right, you don't send him to a place where it's where it's 315 down the lines and 365 to the power rallies. So that'll be interesting whether that comes into play. Also it's based on its asset allocation and how many assets do you have in your minor league system. I'm interested to see what Ken Babby does in terms of the way he's going to market the team. Is he going to spend a year examining and learning the market, or has he been doing that this year? And is he going to have different plans in the way he's going to go about things next year for the Suns?
I think he has an idea, simply because I think you're going to see a lot of the ideas that they implemented in Akron brought here. because they've had tremendous success there, not only with ticket sales, but with the general perception of the team. And, the Suns have been kind of Jacksonville's mom and pop team for a long time because that's what they were. And that was great because it was a fun, family-friendly, great relationship-built business downtown. You would think, looking at Babby's track record with the Akron Rubber Ducks and looking at what the Jaguars have done from a corporate standpoint and with how they have kind of taken the step up, you could say the same thing. Wayne Weaver handed the baton to a faster runner in Shad Khan. It's very possible that the Bragans have handed the baton to a faster runner in Ken Babby.
And let me just point out this too, though. It doesn't mean that you can't use some of those ideas. But can you rattle off for me, Sam, the big sports franchises in Akron?
Firestone Country Club.
Yeah, Firestone Invitational.
Isn't that there?
Right.
The Akron Rubber Ducks.
NFL, and then plus, keeping in mind at the same time, during the summertime, you've got arena football, you've got NASL soccer, and you've got baseball going all at the same time, basically. So you're competing in terms of the time with that, and you got the NFL in town, and it's a big college football city. So you can't just copy and paste Akron to Jacksonville because of
no. I agree, but I do think that there's some business ideas and some promotional ideas, some marketing ideas that the Suns could use in terms of sprucing up, and I think some of that will be welcomed particularly by the business community here in town.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, you can follow Sam on Twitter at Sam Kavaris. Follow me on Twitter at Cole Pepper. We should mention the Sharks, by the way, in the playoffs. I'll have to go to Orlando next week to start the hated Orlando Predators.
The hated Orlando Predators. I'll tell you what, they smoked Tampa when they had to. I mean, they only gave up 16 points. That never happens in an arena game.
Les Moss may be the best coach of his sport that Jacksonville's ever had.
He is a phenomenal coach. He understands his players. And I tell you the truth, I really like him.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
I just think he is so. And one of the reasons I really like him, because he's into it. He's dedicated to it. He loves it. Yep. This isn't a passing fancy for him. This is what he wants to be doing, and he wants to do it well. And to me, that is such a testament. And I think the success that they've had when this team started 0-4 has a lot to do with him.
No doubt about it. Good guy. All right. You can follow us on Twitter, as mentioned. Also, if you want to subscribe, you can do so on iTunes or on Stitcher. Leave a comment if you would. Let us know what you think. We went long. This is a long podcast. We've made up for lost time.
It's fun. That's right.
A lot of good stuff to get going on this. And Jaguars have their scrimmage on Saturday. Armada play at Tampa on Saturday. So you'll have to give me a report from the Jaguars. This will be the first Jaguar scrimmage I will have missed, but I'll be calling the Armada match against Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Very good. All right.
That'll do it.
Thanks, Cole.
To Sam. Thanks to you for listening. And we'll talk to you next time right here on the Sam and Cole Podcast.